Well, welcome back to the final session of our day. And we start this session with a video from Jason Doherty from Australian Training Products.
Assalamu alaikum and greetings from Australia. I'm Jason Doherty, the General Manager at Australian Training Products, which is based in Melbourne, and is part of the Innovation and Business Skills Australia Group. Collectively, we're known as the IBSA Group. Today, I will focus on how we, as a group, provide the end-to-end solution for training standards and resources to assist industry in achieving their outcomes. I do have a PowerPoint show that I will share with you. And hopefully you can now see that on your screen. So let's start by telling you a bit more about us. Established in 2004, IBSA is a not-for-profit organisation with a mission to work with industry and government to strengthen the effectiveness and impact of the vocational education and training system, which is also known as the VET system. Since its inception, IBSA has supported the skills needs of employers across a range of industries to contribute significantly to the Australian economy, including manufacturing, business and financial services, information and communications technology, tourism and hospitality, and the VET sector itself. IBSA bridges the skills gap between industry and the learner to shape the Australian workforce. IBSA has extensive experience and high-level expertise engaging with stakeholders across industry, government, and training providers to convert industry skills needs into national occupational standards. Initially, we were known as the Industry Skills Council, and more recently, the Skills Service Organisation. As part of the IBSA Group, Australian Training Products is an industry-leading organisation providing education solutions to the VET sector both nationally and internationally. With a focus on offering engaging training products, services, and solutions, Australian Training Products is at the forefront of online, digital, and printed learning solutions. This is achieved through our team of highly skilled learning and instructional designers that develop the learning course content through understanding the performance, skills, knowledge, and information that becomes the learning experience to meet industry needs. We also have internal graphic designers who, using effective visuals, enhance the learning experience through guiding the learner as they study the focal points that draw attention. So to summarize the IBSA Group, we achieve our purpose by using our expertise to guide industry in several ways. Firstly, we understand industry trends and future workforce needs through consultation and quite a bit of research. Secondly, we convert industry skills needs into national occupational standards. And lastly, we create engaging education and training solutions. So let's dig a bit deeper into the front end of this process. For learners to be work ready, their training needs to reflect the occupational standards that are required by industry. This is the foundation of an effective vocational training system. At IBSA, we work with industry and the Australian government to develop vocational qualification standards for the manufacturing and aerospace industries. Through this work, we have found the most effective process for developing and refining standards is research into industry job roles, for example, a trainee welder or advanced welder, and so on and so forth. Secondly, identification of key competencies that reflect the skills needed in those roles. Thirdly, developing the required standards, including the clear documentation to make it easier for the training organizations to develop the right resources to meet the standards. 4, review with government and industry to ensure standards are robust and sustainable. And lastly, gain approval from government and industry. Once this process is complete, it is time to begin developing the appropriate learning and assessment resources that satisfy the standards set by government and industry. And of course, they've got to be able to engage the learner. So let's have a look at the process. As any kind of governing body, government or institution, you need to know the training resources are being built correctly and reflective of you and industry need. And as mentioned previously, making it as engaging as possible for the learner. If the learner is not engaged, the process could fail. At Australian Training Products, our approach involves 5 stages. Firstly, it's the research and consultation with the training organisations and government. Then it's content and assessment development. We then conduct a thorough quality review. The product is then sent to the editing department. And finally, the e-learning product is developed. There are several other quality checks built into the process with a final review before the product is released. And we'll talk about that later. Working hand in hand with the training organisations, our highly experienced team deliver products both accredited and non-accredited, which are rich in content and formatted for a multitude of platforms, which gives students 24-hour access to learning and assessment resources. I'd now like to show a short video which my staff produced yesterday to highlight some of their e-learning products. Okay, so that gives a snapshot of some of the e-learning that we can produce at Australian Training Products. We'll now move on to the learner journey itself. A recent report by Deloitte said that the 100-year life has been steadily approaching for some time. Due to scientific advances such as tackling infant mortality, cardiovascular disease, and the reduction of smoking rates, around half of those aged 20 today are expected to live to 100. Current estimates are now that people will change careers around 5 to 7 times. While regular upskilling has been the case for many years in areas like health or education, people in many jobs are being asked to update their skill set on a regular basis to keep up to date with what's going on in their field. In other words, continuous learning, while not a trend, is becoming the norm. Instead of a single shot of training and education at the beginning of life, as the case has traditionally been, the idea gaining traction now is that learning is a lifelong endeavour. By extension, we'll also be working longer. Based on Australian labour force trends and the most recent Commonwealth Treasury intergenerational report, it's forecast that people will be working well into their 70s or 80s. It recognises that humans have a natural drive to explore, learn and grow, and encourages us to improve our own quality of life and sense of self-worth by paying attention to the ideas and goals that inspire us. To that end, the learner's journey needs to extend well beyond the years of education and training to support both industry and employees. Development of short courses, micro-credentialing, or non-accredited upskilling are all areas which we need to include when developing learning resources. At ATP, or Australian Training Products, we developed IBSA Academy, which is an online platform where students can access learning resources no matter where they are on their learner's journey. And finally, I'm just going to circle back to the quality. I touched on quality assurance earlier, but just wanted to emphasize the importance that we here at Australian Training Products place on the quality of our products and how we use this expertise to assist training organisations and governments. And this short video will explain the process.
At Australian Training Products, quality is more than checking boxes. It's about our highly skilled team protecting the reputation of your institution and the learning experiences you deliver to your students. Our quality assurance service, Quality Counts, offers comprehensive and hands-on analysis and assessment against national training package standards, delivering trusted and tested results. Key checkpoints of the service include quality. Do the materials meet the required specifications? And does the product meet the needs of the learner and the assessor? Authenticity. Does it contain unintentional plagiarism? And have the information sources been attributed correctly? Syntax. Does it flow properly? Is the correct grammar and language used? And finally, the Australian Qualifications Framework, making sure the language is pitched at the correct level for the learner. And every single step of the process is overseen by our experienced in-house team of experts. Quality Counts, the benchmark quality assurance review service for your training organisation. Talk to one of our team today.
So in conclusion, here at Australian Training Products, we have found that some people don't build engaging e-learning that is relevant to real jobs, or the content looks great, but fails to cover some of the key areas your standards dictate. Each part of the process I've outlined is important if you're going to produce large numbers of work-ready people. Done well, this will help you engage learners and create the workforce skills you need now and into the future. So thank you for listening. We're happy to answer any questions and discuss your situation in more detail. We look forward to progressing these discussions and supporting you to develop your vocational training to deliver a workforce that has the right skills for your industry. So in the meantime, from Australia, Ma Salima, and we'll hopefully speak soon. Thank you.
Jackson, thank you very much indeed for that. Now we move to Blackboard, an organisation that many universities will already be familiar with. And it's our great pleasure today to welcome Imad Alameri, who is Senior Solutions Engineer at Blackboard. Imad.
Thank you, David, and it's my pleasure to be with you today and participating in this interesting conference. And Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh jami'an. Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Imad Alameri. I'm a Senior Solution Engineer for Blackboard in the Middle East. And today, I will take the opportunity to speak to you about how Blackboard can partner with institutions around the world to help them evolve to meet students' expectations today with the Blackboard EdTech platform. With that said, let's go ahead and start talking about this topic. So I will start with the situation that we are experiencing right now and still having the impact of it. So I think the demand for online education is growing year by year, and this has been stated by colleges and universities all over the world. But to be honest with you, what we have faced during 2020 and 2021, no one was expecting the impact of COVID-19, how it has accelerated the move to online education in this massive way. So the graph in front of you shows you the big difference and the huge difference between the adoption of online education in 2020 compared to 2019. And this put higher education institutions around the world in a tough situation to deal and respond to this rapid and quick, unplanned move to online education. So most of the institutions around the world, they were well known of their reputation and high quality of the face-to-face classes and programs that they were providing. However, the emergency movement to online education isn't providing the students with the same quality that they were used to have from the face-to-face classes. Moreover, a lot of institutions around the world have said that they are facing some challenges related to retention and enrollment, and they have a decrease in enrollment and retention, especially for those institutions that they have international students or in countries where the economy is low. Moreover, this kind of decrease in enrollment and retention and the shortage in funds cause a big issue for institutions in terms of their financial status and financial sustainability. However, this kind of rapid adoption of online education has highlighted some areas of opportunity. First one, online education should be moved beyond just uploading a piece of content or using video conferencing tools. So students today expect some kind of learning experience that it is personalized, modern, intuitive, equitable. So if the institutions fail to provide this to the students will start looking for alternatives and will leave these institutions. Second, actionable data should be serviced at institution, course, and even faculty level. Keep depending on academic referrals and students seeking help to identify students at risk, and keep depending on the manual process to check the course quality and course experience will not be effective anymore. Moreover, there is a huge demand for a more meaningful online education to be able to attract those, what we call it, non-traditional students, those students that they cannot join the institutions face-to-face. So they will get a great benefit from the online education if it has been prepared and done in a perfect way. Now, with that said, Blackboard can partner with institutions around the world to achieve all of this and more. And this is done by helping institutions by establishing a learning experience ecosystem that provide the institution with a personalized, fully integrated teaching and learning platform fueled by data to support learners, instructors, administrators to ensure success. So let's have a deep look at this learning experience ecosystem. So this learning experience ecosystem will provide a modern, intuitive, fully responsive learning management system that could be accessible from any device at any time, anywhere. Moreover, it will introduce a virtual classroom that has a deep integration with the learning management system, with engagement tools designed really for education, like the breakout groups, a whiteboard with annotation tools, the ability to integrate even with the groups available with the course and reflect this in the virtual classroom, the ability on the fly to schedule these online sessions from within the course, and automatically the recording will reside within the course. The ability to take the attendance automatically and reflect it within the course. So all of this kind of experience and integration, it's available in a seamless and integrated experience. A very important topic now, and most of the institutions around the world, they are working hard toward this topic, which is how we can ensure building a more inclusive learning experience within our organization, an experience that fit the needs and requirements and the learning styles of our students within the institution. And this is what the Blackboard learning experience ecosystem that can support institutions to reach to this vision. This is by enabling and automatically generated alternative formats that give the learners the choice to have the format of content that fit their needs and requirements. Today, if you have a visually impaired student, he will be able to get a Braille version of this content on the fly without the need to go to the support office, accessibility support office, and wait for 2 days or 3 days to get this kind of document. He will get it directly within the platform. Also, the learning experience ecosystem will offer faculty members the guidance, the feedback about the accessibility of their content that they have uploaded. And also, it will provide them with a guided procedures, how they can fix these accessibility issues available with the piece of content that they have uploaded. You can consider this as like a free professional development for your faculty members to make sure that any kind of content they are going to develop in the future, they respect all of the accessibility guidelines to make sure that the content is accessible. Finally, a holistic reporting available at institution-wide in order to enable the team in charge of accessibility within the institution, plus the administrators, to have a clear idea about how we are performing in the terms of accessibility for all of the content that reside within the learning management system. What could be the priorities that we need to work on, which departments that they have the major challenges when it comes to the content with poor accessibility, and what could be the strategies and professional development that we need to take care of in order to raise our rank from an accessibility of the content. Now, one important point that we do care a lot in Blackboard, and we have created for this a complete academy called Blackboard Academy, is how we can enable the instructors to be equipped with the knowledge and expertise to deliver state-of-the-art experience to the students and design the courses that make sense and provide the students with the experience that they are looking for. And from the Blackboard Academy, we have a lot of certificates and a huge number of certificates that take the instructors from being a beginner using educational technology to be an expert applying the most modern teaching practices like flipped classroom and more effective assessment and feedback strategies, and gamification, and building courses that align with the course design best practices. So this is a very important piece that we do care about, and we deliver this through the Blackboard Academy. Now, let me talk the data, because now learning analytics is very critical and very important. And the use of the learning experience system, that means this kind of usage will generate a significant amount of data. And if we harness this data and convert it to a meaningful, actionable insights for the different stakeholders within the institution, this will make a big difference when it comes to take the right decision to enhance the teaching and learning within the institution. So let's have some examples. So this instructor gets notified automatically that one of the students is falling behind from a performance and engagement. So he was able to drill down within the insights available and to monitor this student and to try to understand what's going on with the student. And he will be able also to conduct a virtual classroom directly with this student to have a better understanding. He will be able also to monitor the students, to be able to support the students before it's too late at early stages within the course. The same applies for this advisor. She can, she has like around 200 students that she advised. So this dashboard helped her with identifying the top 5 students that they are in most need of her support. So she were able to identify them and do a quick intervention with these students utilizing the learning analytics solution. The same applies for this program lead. He was able to identify sections and courses with problematic issues around student experience and around course design in order to speak with these instructors and have better understanding why their courses and sections are falling behind in terms of the student experience and course design. Maybe they have an issues related to enablement. Maybe they have a workload that they couldn't manage to have a good attention to the courses, so he can take the right intervention utilizing these education insights. With the implementation of the Blackboard learning experience ecosystem, your students will enjoy a modern, intuitive, fully responsive, and accessible from any device learning experience ecosystem that help them succeed. What does this mean for institutions? First of all, an engaged and successful student means a student that satisfied with the quality of the teaching and learning provided by the institution, that he will never think to leave the institution, and he will be a great marketing asset for the institution to attract other students. Also, the learning experience ecosystem will help you provide education insights to different stakeholders within the institution, starting from the students themselves, to the instructors, to the programs head, to the deans, to enable them to take data-driven decisions to enhance the quality of teaching and learning within the organization. And finally, with this comprehensive learning experience ecosystem, you will have the power to build a more meaningful online education experience where you can attract those non-traditional students that they cannot come to the campus for face-to-face classes, where you can expand your brand and get more revenue out of the learning experience ecosystem. With that said, I would like to thank you all for listening to this presentation, and thank David and the team of this conference for giving me the opportunity to be with you today.
Well, Imad, thank you very much indeed. There were some very interesting links, I think, between what you were sharing in terms of solutions and what Patrick was setting out in an earlier session this afternoon. Yes. About what the challenges were. And we, to be honest, we didn't plan it this way, but in fact, it's worked brilliantly that your session has followed his. To the members of the forum who are attending at the moment, if you would like to put any questions to Imad, please do so in the chat in the next minute or so. And while people are thinking about that, Blackboard is an organization which has enjoyed huge success and huge growth in recent years.
Yes, actually, we had a very interesting also success, especially talking about the Middle East and supporting our clients in the Middle East during the pandemic. And we had a great success in terms of the adoption and utilization of Blackboard to support education continuity during the pandemic, where teaching and learning didn't stop. So we were able to support our clients all over the Middle East and all over the world with the technology and the capabilities that they needed in order to continue teaching and learning without stopping the education.
And it's amazing to speculate how universities would have started to cope without you and what you're doing. Can I ask you a question about staff, academic staff, and their reaction to working with Blackboard? Now, I know at the start when this happened, there was some resistance in some countries. I mean, my sense is now that whilst it's not completely gone away, it's much less, and that staff are much happier working with Blackboard. Would you like to speculate as to how that change in mindset has come about?
I think one of the statistics that I saw around this, that what happened during 2020, in a few months, institutions all over the world spent years in order to reach to, from enabling faculty members to start using the educational technology in teaching and learning. Now, I can say that the adoption of using educational technology in institutions around the world is extremely high. However, this kind of the emergency movement to education, while depending mostly on video conferencing tools and sharing some piece of content, I believe it's a good start for faculty members, but institutions today needs to think more about the transformation of courses to a proper blended and online teaching courses, where they do care about the course design, the delivery modes, the enablement of the faculty members to be able to engage students and apply the new and modern teaching practices, having the confidence of using the technology from an academic perspective in more effective way, rather than just using the tools within the learning management system. So we see that institutions start now to invest more on evolving from the adoption and utilization of the educational technology within the institution, rather than just depending on the basic tools and the basic virtual conferencing that happens for online teaching and learning.
We've a question here from Dr. Sharif Ismail. And he says, firstly, thank you, Imad, for such an informative presentation. I want to ask you how you see the future of universities in terms of continuity to support the educational process. That's a huge question, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a big question. I believe education continuity needs different stakeholders within the organization to deal with, starting from the academic leadership to the educational technology department, because today universities needs to build some kind of strategic transformation for the use of educational technology to support the education process within the institution. And also, I see a big need and dependency on learning analytics to provide the different stakeholders within the organization with the required insight to help them maintain and also enhance the education process within the institutions. So I believe data is very, very important. Accessibility topic is very important, and the topic of inclusive learning design to help the students with different learning styles and needs. And also there is a big change in the culture of educational institutions to accept even the culture of working remotely and supporting even the approval process to happen remotely, and the real digital transformation, even on the administrative side of the institutions. So this is from my knowledge to answer this question.
Mm-hmm. Abdul Hali Amenia from North Africa says, I think that these strategies are not that effective in North Africa regions because we're still struggling with technological constraints, which in fact put online learning under question. Well, while you're thinking about that, I don't think it is the whole of North Africa. And I don't think your comment is restricted to Africa either. I remember going out for the British Council to Bangladesh to do a job, and there was one very remote village where there was a course, and it was a course supported by a university in another country. And the whole community came together. Temporary masts were erected to give internet access and so on. And the net effect of that, and it was a course about fish farming, was that the whole community developed its skills, its expertise, and the end product was a better livelihood for that place. And it had been brought about by the determination of the people in that village who were prepared to adapt and engage and so on. Now, that's obviously not the solution in every situation, but I have seen the most amazing developments in situations that you would think were very impoverished in so many ways. But what are your thoughts about that comment?
I agree with you totally. So, and even when we are talking about internet connectivity and connection, even with a well-developed countries, you will find some places that they are suffering from some kind of connection issues. And this should not stop us from exploring more and trying to find solutions around this situation. But we need to invest more on developing the online education and blended learning. And we are not replacing the universities or the face-to-face teaching and learning, but investing in online education and the blended learning will open opportunities for a lot of learners and what we call it, I talked about this during the presentation, the non-traditional students, like an employee that he wants to complete a degree and he cannot go for the university face-to-face. An aging student, he is coming back to empower his skills. So there is a lot of opportunities that online education open for learners. The connectivity issue is not a stopper, but it's one of the challenges that could be faced by institutions in this regard.
A couple of other, I think, very helpful comments. The comment that the effectiveness of online courses is worthy of study, and we have to say absolutely yes to that. Yeah. But then when you start to break that down, what do we mean by effectiveness? And this is about, for me, the way in which learners engage with the courses, the materials, and the support networks that are available. And maybe what that says to institutions is that when they are doing student inductions and starting courses, maybe they need to think very carefully about what content is put in there to help learners really embrace with it. And maybe like the 24/7 help presentation that we had earlier on, what is available to students who struggle with it in different ways or who need things clarifying. But coming to Blackboard in this connection, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I very much get the impression that the capability of Blackboard is huge and that we're probably only using a little bit of it at the moment. I mean, what are your thoughts on how that might develop in future years?
Yeah, so, and this is a very valid and interesting question to talk about, which is how we can increase the adoption and the utilization of any educational technology platform that I'm using within my institution. And this is a comprehensive work, needs to be led at a higher level within the institution with the belief and the strategic that this is something that we have invested in and we want to make use of it based on our needs and requirements and based on the best practices available worldwide. So I believe the key point around this one, an enabled faculty member that can use the technology effectively from a teaching and learning perspective will help drive a great adoption of the use of the technology. So this is a key point. Having the right support enablement for the faculty members and students will increase the adoption and utilization for this platform. And finally, investing more on the pedagogy and course design and support will increase the adoption of any EdTech platform.
We could continue this conversation for quite a lot longer, and I have to say the comments coming up in the chat are really very helpful and will be helpful for the association when it's doing its report. I mean, factors such as a problem in Kurdistan being the fear that the majority of teachers will lose their job. And I know that's been a fear in other countries as well, and so on. But we do have to finish here. Imad, thank you. Thank you so much for preparing the presentation today. And thank you through to Blackboard for what Blackboard is doing to help our universities.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure to be with you today. And thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. And I'm pleased to welcome our next presenter, who is Omar, and I'm going to pronounce this slightly wrongly, I'm sure, but Nadey, who is CEO and co-founder of StudyMapper. Welcome.
Hello, David.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Very clearly.
Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Just let me know if everything is okay on your side, please.
We see your screen clearly.
Thank you very much. Before we start, actually, hello, everyone. I'd like to thank the Association of Arab Universities and the Gulf Education team for the given opportunity to speak in this Middle East Thought Leadership Forum. Today, it's an honor for me to share my vision as the CEO and co-founder of StudyMapper. StudyMapper is a young company developing a game-changing career builder with the use of AI and human assistance to solve problems related to educational guidance, international student mobility, and the employability of the 30 years old around the world. One of the reasons why we are all gathered today around this forum is obviously higher education and there is no doubt that we are all aware of its important role in the search for better employment opportunities and in the quest for a better standard of living. In fact, according to a study by the World Bank, people with a bachelor's degree earn 66% times more than those without a higher education diploma. As a result, we naturally observe since the last 2 decades a sharp increase in the number of students in higher education, mainly influenced by the strong demand from emerging countries. The numbers speak for themselves. In 10 years, the world's post-secondary students population has grown by 43%, rising to 222 million in 2017. This number is expected to grow at a steady rate over the next 10 years, passing the 300 million mark by 2027, according to UNESCO. However, several recent studies show that obtaining a higher degree is not necessarily a guarantee of access to a quality and fulfilling job. According to a study by Insight Hired in the US, 51% of graduates are not working in the field of study of their original study 2 years after graduating. Why obtaining a higher education diploma no longer guarantees access to a quality and fulfilling job. Indeed, there is a gap between the training provided by universities and the expectations of employers in the labor market. Hence, there is a need for educational institutions to align with the constant change in the labor market in terms of skills demand. The goal being to better prepare students for the reality of employments on the one hand, and on the other hand, to satisfy companies facing a lack of adequate profile. It is in this context that StudyMapper was created a few months ago in order to face what we found to be a three-party problematic. It starts with students who are lost in their academic guidance and in the process of applying into schools. Students also face difficulties in finding job opportunities, whether it's an apprenticeship, an internship, or even a permanent position. As the main actor of the educational chain, schools are encountering difficulties in generating hiring opportunities for their students. They also need digital support to generate more positive reviews in order to maintain their attractiveness in a competitive market. As the end users, companies are facing difficulties in finding the adequate skills in many business sectors, which results in time-consuming and costly recruitment processes. Our solution to these problems is to connect in one click students, schools, and businesses using AI and video. To do so, for students, we allow them to get all the information about their schooling and career briefly and easily. We also help them to apply in one click to schools, trainings, and company job offers that really matches their expectations. For schools, this is the opportunity to be ranked in the first training search engine and to promote themselves to students from all over the world. But it's also the opportunity to generate employment opportunities for their students by partnering with companies from all over the world. And finally, for company, we offer a unique recruitment process that allows them to attract and recruit the best talent from the best schools around the world. Actually, StudyMapper is the name of the company, but we develop two products. One product, which name is like the company StudyMapper, and the other one, which name is Study and Work. The difference between both of them is that StudyMapper is the mediator between students and schools, and Study and Work is the intermediary between companies and students. So why we have two solutions? Actually, as a young company, we faced that was really challenging for us to gather all three parts on the same platform at first. That's why, because communicating with schools is different with communicating with company. That's why we chose to go with two separate platforms. But our short-term vision is to gather those two platforms and make it once. That's why we say connecting in one click students with schools and companies. So what's the market without our solution, so you can understand the problematic? The problem here for academic guidance and the applications for higher education training, students are lost except their parents and their, let's say, their professors in high schools. No one helps students. There is no solution on the market that helps them when it comes to choose the right degree, and especially a degree that will allow them to have a fulfilling job after the degree. And they are also lost when it comes to go outside of their own country. Early on, I talked about the increasing demand in higher education from developing countries. And especially those students are willing and more willing to go outside of their country so they can have access to quality degrees. But today there is no solution on the market, and they have to deal with that by themselves, going into Google and making some searches, etc., and applying to each website, to each school's website, etc. And on the other hand, that's the same thing when it comes for searching their jobs, whether it's an internship abroad or in their country, even for permanent positions. They face let's say, unattractive job position, boring job positions, especially published on job boards. And sometimes they also use LinkedIn to, to hope that someone's going to help them in their network to find a job that's they're looking for. The difference with our solution, actually, with Study Mapper, we help students get informed, educated, and guided by the assistance of AI, especially machine learning, using the data of the alumni of the schools, but also the demands in terms of skills in the labor market. And we also allow them to get connected and to get, to have all the information they need about a training program, like let's say what's their chance to get these job positions after this degree in this school. And on the other hand, we also help them to easily apply and to get all the information when it comes to go abroad for their studies. And with Study and Work, just imagine like a dating app. Today, young people are using social media. As TikTok is one of the example. We have Instagram, but we also have Snapchat. So we just thought about a system where they could easily promote themselves through video, because resume can just, resume, we found that resume, the way they're applying today into jobs, is really like not enough for them to sell themselves. So we give really them with the video the opportunity to sell their potential, their motivations, and they also have the chance actually to easily receive suggestions of job opportunities that really matches their expectations, but also the expectations of the companies on the other hand, and what the company is looking for. So they won't receive like a lot of job opportunities like on job boards, etc., but they will just receive few opportunities that really matches like 80%, 80 to 100% matches their expectations in their search, in the job search process. And for a company, we provide a unique communication tool to help them market their job position, but also to attract the best talents from the best schools around the world. That's the same thing for school that we're going to see later on. But right now, with our solution, companies are able to post their job in the career centers of our partner schools. And on the other hand, we have a pre-qualification system that allows them to receive only the applications of students that really matches their expectations. And for schools, this is, let's say, it's a unique, because on the market we don't have these solutions. This is a unique place. It's a unique marketplace, social media or marketplace, whatever you call it. It's a unique tool that allows them to be on top in their industry, to promote themselves, to promote their new trainings, to promote the employability rates of their university, of their training, etc., which allow them to be really competitive regarding the market. The technology we are using right now is really machine learning, because actually we want to rely on the demand on labor market in terms of skills. As we all know, the demand in terms of skills is always changing with new technologies, etc. The need in new skills is really evolving through the time. So we want to rely on what the companies are expecting right now as the skills when they hire students, in order to advise students, but also to provide data to universities, schools, in order for them to improve their trainings. We use a lot of technology, but the main technology is really machine learning, in order really to match the expectations of the labor market, also on the one hand, but to match them with what students are looking for, but also what the university are giving as training opportunities. Because the final objective of a student when he gets a degree is to get an employee. It's to get let's say the best job position, a fulfilling job opportunity, and that's where we are really coming with machine learning. We also use video, because video, as I said, young people are using videos, and using video to promote even training programs, but also to promote a job position is really accurate in nowadays. Our early traction actually is our pride. We are working with more than 250 partner schools in France, Belgium, Canada, and in the following weeks and at the beginning of next year, we are starting the partnerships with schools in English-speaking countries like UK, US, but also Ireland. But right now, we are mainly focused on French-speaking countries. But our aim, obviously, is to go worldwide. And we have more than 55,000 training programs accessible in one click, and over 10,000 students have been enrolled in partner schools through our platform. We also allow more than 500 interns to be recruited in our 130 clients companies. Thank you very much. If you have any question, please feel free.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Omar. Your presentation has sparked a fascinating discussion in the chat. And this is a discussion which will be valuable for the people who are preparing the association's input into the UNESCO conference. There are some issues there which are probably a little bit too political for us to pick up at the moment. And one of them, let me just pick it up very gently, it relates to the extent to which governments really want to keep the present social structure as it is at the moment, and possibly use limits in education to achieve that. But on the other hand, there is the view that actually governments want their countries to develop, and they realize for this to happen, the education system has to develop so that more and more highly educated people come to the market to help firms and so on. And so there are those two forces at play. I mean, what you've presented this afternoon is an extremely innovative and I would say very sensible way of joining things up. And congratulations on doing that.
Thank you.
Where do you see Study Mapper in, let's say, 5 years' time? Because 10 years is a long way away. What if we were if we were doing this presentation in 5 years' time, what new things do you think you'd be sharing with us?
Like basically, actually, as I said, we are really young. We started just 18 months ago, and we are based in Paris, in France. And the aim right now is to, like at the beginning of next year, is to go to UK, so we can access to all the English-speaking countries market, and hopefully in 5 years make it worldwide and go in the Middle East, because Asian market is the one that we are really, really willing to access to. That represents, let's say, the 40% of the growth rates in the next months in the, let's say, in the market of higher education. Especially in India, they have a lot of needs actually, but also in Indonesia, but even North African countries have a lot of needs regarding these solutions.
Well, I'm just checking the comments to see if there have been any late issues which we can pick up. And the answer is probably not, but they will, as I have said, be very valuable for the report writers. And I'm very grateful to you for coming along and for stimulating that discussion. And I wish you every success going forward. And I hope we will meet in 5 years' time when you can update us again. Thank you very much,
David.
Thank you. We now go to something which is not on the program, but which is important. And that is from the Modern Learners. And I'm going to hand over to Melissa to take us through it.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. I'm filling in a gap for you all, but I am pleased to have the opportunity to talk with each of you. As I've been sitting in the background, I keep thinking, oh, there's so many things that I would love to contribute to this conversation, and now I have the opportunity. So I'm Missy in spoken language, and I am the co-founder of Modern Learners. And most importantly, I'm a relentless advocate for learning. And I help people like you, designers of professional learning and professors and teachers and instructors. I help people just like you design and execute high quality learning experiences with high impact technology. So I'm one of those digital natives, they say, and I just use this in my work to support people in schools and universities. My goal today is to give you a glimpse of the Modern Learners lens, which I use to support professors in designing Modern Learners experiences. And before we get too far into my goal, I think it is really important to understand your goal. So if you could take a minute and type in the chat, what do you want to learn about designing learning experiences? So I will be quiet so you can think. What is your goal? What do you want to learn about designing learning? And I'll wait for some things to come in through the chat before I move on. Thank you, Jasmine. Asynchronous learner-centered ideas. Anyone else brave enough to write what you are hoping to learn about designing learning experiences in our new era? Sometimes quiet is important for thinking. Learner-driven learning and teaching. Learners' needs, presentation of learning concepts, Designing for engagement. Hi, Jody. Different techniques to endure educating, how students feel and are affected by the design of their learning, the paradigm shift, everything. Absolutely. I understand where you're at. But to get started, we want to explore one of the most important questions. And that is, and comes from a book by the same name, and what do you mean by learning? Which is a book authored by Seymour Saracen. In the book, he writes, "We began to study simple problems." He went on to say, by simple problems, he meant those that the field believed it understood, those taken for granted beliefs, which under close scrutiny proved to be misleading, wrong, or grossly oversimple. The word and concept of learning has gone as unexamined as they are important. When we use the word, our intentions are honorable. When these good intentions turn out to result in total or partial failures, we are disappointed and puzzled, and we direct blame to various factors, but barely do we ask, is it possible that our conception of learning was faulty, grossly simplistic, and in need of an overhaul or even discarded? And never in our lives has this question been more real than in the anticipation of a post-pandemic time. So in my work, I use the modern learner's lens to begin the design process. It looks like this holistically, but in the next few minutes, we will break it down and break it apart into its simplest form. And we start with examining our beliefs. What do we believe about how children learn most powerfully and deeply? What are our deepest commitments to children and their well-being? What matters most in our schools or universities? What is our mission and vision? And then we talk about the context. And as David alluded to just a bit ago, the contexts are starting to emerge in the chat with our last speaker. How well do we know the children we serve? What are the collective hopes, dreams, and challenges and fears? Again, the collective. What's the collective expectation? What are the larger global shifts that inform our work? And what skills and knowledge do students need to thrive in the future? That's the context that we have to examine in our work. And then we get back down to the practices. What are the practical applications we're seeking? What is now possible in the classrooms? Think about the ed tech we've learned about today. What are the greatest potentials of our students? What is the role of the teacher? And how do we share our work? All of those things, beliefs, context, practices, fit within the learning culture. Are we a learning culture or are we a teaching culture? How do we support and encourage professional learning? Do we share a common language? How do we attend to emotional aspects of change? Because, my friends, we have experienced the emotional aspects of change in the last 20 months. How are we holding up? So again, this is the holistic picture of the lens. And it's important to understand that you have to have all four pieces to look through the lens at whatever it is you're trying to design. Because if we have beliefs and contexts, but no practices, we end up ineffective. And if we have a solid understanding of our context and solid practices, but no strong set of beliefs, we end up inconsistent. And if we have beliefs and practices, but not context and very little understanding of the context, we end up irrelevant. I don't think we want to be ineffective, inconsistent, or irrelevant. So together, we must examine and redesign after some significant conversations about our beliefs, the contexts, and the practices that create our culture of learning. So that's the modern learner's lens. And that's the work I do to support people just like you in redesigning their systems and their classrooms and their day-to-day work. So I want to invite you to comment in the chat about one or both of these questions. How will you avoid becoming ineffective, inconsistent, and irrelevant? And what upskilling do you need to be more prepared to design modern learning experiences? Throughout the last day and a half, 2 days, we've heard what people are making available to us. But as the learner in this situation, what do you need? Just as you think about what your learners think and what your learners need, we too, as the learner, need to examine what we need. So take a second and add some thoughts to the chat. Thank you, Diab, for recognizing the simplicity of the lens. I agree. So I would like to invite you to continue putting the comments there, but I would love the opportunity to talk about designing learning experiences with you as an individual or your university. And just to make the connection, I have been working with AK and his team at the Gulf conferences, and I'm working behind the scenes because AK has invited me to this conversation with him. And for that, I am really appreciative. And I invite the rest of you to have a conversation like that with me as well. David, I'm going to bring you on back up here with me, and I will turn it over. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that this is extremely useful and it's challenging. And I'm also grateful to Jasmine, who I think has made some very helpful points in the chat, taking us back to the meaning of the term education and where that has come from. Because at the end of the day, we're not starting from scratch. We have been doing this sort of thing for 900 years or so and adapting it as we go through. And I think you've added a dimension to what we're doing that I hope the people producing the report for the association will take into account when they go forward. Maybe tomorrow we come back to this. I'm not quite sure when in the program. We'll have to look at that this evening. But very profound, very helpful, very straightforward, and a lot to think about there.
Great. Well, I appreciate the opportunity. And for those willing to take a risk and participate in the chat, when I shifted the learning onto you as a learner and defining your goals and then defining what you need, because truly serving you is what will serve our learners across the world. So thank you. David, I'm turning it back over to you, and I'm going to disappear backstage once again. Enjoy.
You do. Thank you. Bye-bye. And we conclude our day, apart from a brief summing up, with some more evidence of what has been done when the needs of learners and the needs of a country have been taken into account. In about 2002, Dubai wanted to establish a British university. They had some very particular reasons, which were due to the features of British higher education, the needs of the economy there, and a whole raft of other factors as well. Well, 18 years on, 19 years on, that university is flourishing. And like all other universities, it had to cope with COVID. And we now have a recording from their registrar and chief administrative officer, Dr. Hugh Martin, which will talk us through how they responded to COVID and what they learnt from it. Over to you, Hugh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good day to you from wherever you are joining us at this wonderful opportunity to engage with thought leaders in the world of education in the Middle East. My name is Hugh Martin, and I am the Registrar and Chief Administrative Officer at the British University in Dubai. Let me begin by thanking the Association of Arab Universities and Gulf Conferences for organizing such an important forum. Today, I've been asked to reflect on the opportunities and challenges facing universities and give you a glimpse in the short time we have of my vision for the future. I'd like to start with a quotation. 30 years from now, the big university campuses will be relics. Universities won't survive. The legendary management guru Peter Drucker made those comments in an interview with Forbes magazine in 1997. The 30 years in which he predicted the death of the traditional university haven't yet elapsed, but unless something quite dramatic happens in the next 6, his prediction will be proved baseless. And many of us who run universities or even work and study in higher education will breathe a huge sigh of relief for that. Now, it's unsurprising both that someone like Drucker would have predicted the demise of universities and that, as it turns out, he got it wrong. Because at the end of the 1990s, online and distance learning were increasing exponentially, thanks to rapid developments in technology. When he was interviewed, I just left my career in the private sector to take up postgraduate study and then to lecture. Within a few years, I was teaching almost entirely online to students based in some of the remotest and least accessible highlands and islands of Scotland. There were huge opportunities afforded to my students and my colleagues through the virtual learning environment the university I worked for had developed. It was genuinely exciting. You felt like the tech you were using actually meant you were doing something worthwhile and cutting edge. Yet, simultaneously, I had the same experience in the traditional academic office in classrooms, where I was giving tutorials, seminars, and lectures. And the optimism and excitement of teaching in those places were added to by the benefits that only face-to-face engagement with students can bring. So this is the conundrum. Balancing the sense of a university's physical place with a sense of its purpose, while understanding that not only are both mutable, but both adapt at a different pace and to a different agenda. In fact, Peter Drucker does hone in on this issue, which is as important today as it was in 1997, the suitability or otherwise of the university campus. In the same interview, he went on to say, today's buildings are hopelessly unsuited and totally unneeded. The role of the university campus, and especially this wild assertion that campus will disappear in the future, is still a hot topic and one which predates the current pandemic, although COVID-19 certainly focuses the minds of those of us who lead in higher education on what our future campuses could and should look like. My own institution, British University in Dubai, has started admitting undergraduates for the first time in its distinguished almost 20-year history. Until 2018, we were postgraduate only. So the need for us to move to our own dedicated and purpose-built campus is now really pressing. And that's given my colleagues and me the fantastic opportunity, one which arises perhaps once in most of our university careers, to start from scratch. The particularly supportive educational environment here in the UAE affords us real possibilities. We are encouraged to be creative and to think blue sky. But we also need to harness the wealth of thinking and research, not to mention the significant developments in materials and construction that have burgeoned in the higher education sector with regard to designing, planning, and realizing new campuses. This can be overwhelming. In our own case, we must bring together a research-intensive environment, which is our USP, alongside modern teaching and learning areas, with information commons, event spaces, and facilities for all manner of activities, some of which we don't even know exist, and all of which must be fit for purpose at the point when we move in, but must also sustain us for at least another 20 years, if not more. Now, there isn't time today to rehearse much of the significant and useful debate on the university of the future, but we can address some of the important factors we know will be the pillars, both literally and figuratively, of the campuses we are building now. Face-to-face, on-campus engagement is still a vital part of the student experience. It's a truism, but one which bears repeating. In today's world, where cash is king and knowledge appears to be disposable, a university education is about more than just a degree. There are many reasons why students come to campus and why they will continue to need and want to come to campus, to meet and mix, to challenge and debate, to encounter people from different cultures, backgrounds, genders, faiths, sexualities, and behaviors, to fall in and out of love with learning, each other, and themselves. All those non-verbal cues which are so hard to interpret online. And then there is the communal entity of the university, not just within itself, but in and as a vital part of the locality and community in which it works and thrives. Education institutions serve as hubs for a plethora of functions, each of which enrich and nourish the people around them. Public lectures, continuous and lifelong learning, training courses, sports facilities, theatre, music, dance, language labs, evening classes, external event hosting, even creches and car parks. Now, advanced technology can replace a large amount of the monotony of administration. It can reinvigorate staff and free them up to engage with students and colleagues more. And it can make our jobs both more proactive and effective through big data, statistical analysis, and forecasting trends, all of which will revolutionize the way we can keep our universities at the forefront of knowledge. Technology offers slicker, more efficient methods to a model that has lasted for over a millennium, but it doesn't offer an alternative. For example, artificial intelligence hasn't yet produced the white heat that had been predicted. It is still more of a slow burn. And the benefits of AI will be seen in the back offices of administration rather than in the clumsy and frankly embarrassing attempts at robot lecturers we see trotted out at conferences and conventions intent on persuading us that they are the educators of the future. There are plenty of reasons universities have been in existence for more than 1,000 years. All those which have survived and thrived have done so because they have adapted to and grown with society around them, often leading and informing the very change that they've witnessed. We should be extremely wary of the edtech vendor or the commercial carpetbagger who pops up with an online solution to miraculously transform the university into an entirely digital enterprise. It smacks of opportunism and short-term profiteering, with little or no regard for the real long-term future of higher education, or indeed of the needs and desires of students themselves. Instead, we need to work with technologies, as far as possible future-proofing both our pedagogic methodology and the physical presence of education. I say as far as possible because, of course, this is a problem any cutting-edge industry faces. What is top of the line trailblazing now is old hat tomorrow. Now, given that we know many of the jobs our future graduates will take don't yet exist, how then do we future-proof our teaching spaces to take account of purposes not even thought of at this time? For me, one obvious way is to embrace the interdisciplinarity of the modern university, where subjects intersect and the traditional definitions of student and teacher and academic become blurred. The physical infrastructure which supports and nurtures this new way of interacting requires multi-purpose, multifunctional and dynamic architecture. And this already happens in the contemporary education system. For example, university libraries have changed out of all recognition, even in the 30 years since I was an undergraduate student. Libraries are still the beating heart of our education communities. But rather than stack upon stack of dusty books, they are now learning commons, group study points, IT help desks, cafes, meeting spaces, event venues, and many more creatively purposed uses besides. So it is essential that we continue to plan, design, build, and inhabit campuses, however they morph and adapt to future developments. Physical campuses, rather than, or as I would say, alongside online environments, enable us to do what we do best. And that is helping students become independent learners and providing us all, students and staff alike, with the spaces to continue our development into well-rounded human beings, alive with the possibilities of knowledge. And that brings me to the heart of the matter. My vision for the future of universities is about students themselves. Much has been written about the purpose of universities and higher education more generally. I'll cut straight to the chase. I don't believe universities exist to create job-ready graduates. In fact, I find job-ready overused and reductive. We all know the cliche that many of the jobs that future graduates will take don't even exist now. We also know that our parents or even our grandparents were the last generations who could claim to keep one job for life. As an example, I turned 50 this year and I've had 3 very different careers so far. The idea then that universities should be mills, churning out graduates, clutching applied degrees in the jobs that industry sets for us, is not only socially and ethically wrong, but also, if you prefer to keep things less philosophical, just economically and practically nonsensical. Universities do not exist to create job-ready graduates. Our role is to create life-ready graduates. The world in which our graduates of today and tomorrow will have to find their way is full of shocks and surprises. It is mutable, diverse, and uncompromisingly complex. STEM subjects, that is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, simply do not have all the answers. Technical skills are all very well, but by the nature of their specialized fields, they often have a limited shelf life. I argue that it's up to industry and the private sector to carry out that specialized training as part of continuous lifelong learning. Moreover, because it's expensive and shouldn't be subsidized by the public purse, industry should fund that training itself. To thrive and succeed in tomorrow's world, graduates need the creative, analytical, communicative, discursive, presentational, rhetorical skills, and sometimes just plain contrariness that the arts and humanities inculcate. STEM subjects rarely look kindly on ambiguity. The arts and humanities writhe in ambiguities. In my vision, successful universities and society in the future, we will champion the full range of subjects, and that includes both STEM and the arts and humanities. We must resist a system that is predicated on how much money students' degrees will earn them on graduation. Let the job market marketize itself rather than employers dictating the terms of education. And finally, I want to turn our attention to our own region here in the Middle East. At a time when global mobility is in question for everyone, not just students, we need to rethink the idea that the full student experience can only really be achieved by and in the Western model. The ongoing pandemic, not to mention environmental sustainability and the cost financially and climatically of international travel, shows us that we can't continue as we have been, glibly or commercially assuming that international student traffic is mostly one way. Just as we can, do and should have a sector where universities of all specialisms and none can exist and thrive alongside each other, so too the student experience must be valuable wherever students find themselves. Sure, we need to do better in international universities. We need to learn from the campuses, the facilities, the prospects, the traditions, and the gloriously colorful histories of students and their lives at universities in the West. Above all, we need to listen to students. They know what they want, and they want their voices heard. So when I'm asked what lessons we can learn from the pandemic and what future opportunities there are for higher education, I reply that the student experience is my main, almost only concern. We have to find ways to ensure our current, new and prospective students get that experience, whether we're online, blended or back in the classroom finally. We must learn from the best online educators. Dial down our snobbery about how they went about it, resist the calls to close physical learning spaces, and above all realize that paying lip service to the student experience will no longer wash. The ability of students to be involved positively in the governance, structures, curricula and administration of their institutions is more than well proven, especially in UK universities. Here in the Middle East, it's time for academic hierarchies, privileges and prejudices to be replaced by an experience that partners with students to help them develop into life-ready graduates, no matter what or where they study. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Hugh. Hugh is at this precise moment in time on an aircraft. He very much wanted to be with us in person to deliver that. And I rather suspect, had he been, there would have been a very good discussion now. He said a number of things that were challenging and also a number of things that were profound. They've been recorded and we will return to those tomorrow. Also, Hugh has given me a brilliant feed to introduce tomorrow, because we will have with us tomorrow a student organisation. A student organisation which has been playing a leading role in enabling students to enable their universities to become more sustainable. So please join us for that. Not only for that, we have Roberta from the World Bank as our final speaker, and we kind of started with the World Bank and we will finish with them. Very important players in all of this. And also back on camera, there will be the Secretary General of the Association of Arab Universities. And it will be very interesting to see how we go into that last session. Also tomorrow, two other sessions. One is about quality assurance, which I would suggest is vital, because if universities do not retain their quality and their quality assurance, they risk their reputations, and also they risk the employability and the engagement of life that they will create for their students. The last session that I'm going to mention, although there are others tomorrow, is a session about how universities and states interact with each other, how states trust their universities, and how states enable them to work, to develop, to meet the needs of society. I want to thank everybody for today. I want to thank all of our speakers. I want to thank everybody who has contributed to the chat, which today has been very rich. Our frustration is that we're always short of time, but there were some very, very helpful points on the chat which we will not lose. Particularly, I would like to thank Abdul Halig, Mohammed, Dalia, and all the others who are part of the Gulf Conferences team that have put this event together. I would like to thank Melissa, who in a sense is my co-pilot for this event as our technical director. And I'd like to thank again our sponsors, because without them, without their support, without their presentations, there would be no forum. So thank you for joining in today. Have a good rest, and we will look forward to starting at the same time with you tomorrow for the last day of our forum. Goodbye.